The office towers stand sentinel, monuments to American innovation, trillions of dollars in research, development, and proprietary secrets held within steel and glass. But the war for this wealth doesn't rage on a battlefield. It happens here, in the cold light of a server room, where the silence is only ever broken by the whisper of the fans. This is the sound of the world's most aggressive, most sophisticated industrial espionage campaign. This is the silent war. They don't want your money. Not primarily. They want something far more valuable. Your future, the formula for your next generation chip, the design of your classified aircraft, the decade of research that cost your company everything. They want to clone it, reverse engineer it, and mass produce it. And the perpetrators, they aren't lone wolves in a basement. They are organized. They are persistent. They are the Advanced Persistent Threats, or APTs, tied directly to the intelligence apparatus of a major world power. We're talking about Chinese APT groups. Tonight, we pull back the veil on the digital shadow army waging the silent war for American corporate secrets. Welcome back to the Digital Sleuth. The story we're tracing tonight isn't just a cybercrime documentary. It's an examination of one of the largest, most systemic transfers of wealth in human history. The FBI estimates that the scale of this theft is so immense, it constitutes an existential threat to the long-term competitive advantage of the United States. How does a nation-state sneak into the heart of a defense contractor, a pharmaceutical lab, or a cutting-edge tech startup? Let's start at the point of impact. The targets are never random. They are selected with surgical precision, aligned perfectly with China's ambitious long-term plans. Specifically, initiatives like Made in China 2025, which aims for global dominance in high-tech manufacturing. To achieve this, they deploy specialist units. We call them Advanced Persistent Threats, or APTs. They are essentially digital commando squads, highly funded, patient, and methodical. We've identified a few key players who have left their calling card on countless compromised networks. First, there is APT-41, or WINTI. This group is unique because they don't just steal secrets, they moonlight. They are known for conducting state-sponsored espionage, stealing IP, while simultaneously running financially motivated cybercrime operations, like deploying ransomware, to line their own pockets. It's a perfect blend of duty and greed. Then we have APT-10, or Stone Panda. These are the masters of the supply chain attack. Their most famous campaign, known as Cloud Hopper, didn't target the big companies directly. Instead, they targeted the managed service providers, or MSPs, the smaller, trusted IT firms that manage the networks of hundreds of larger clients. By compromising one MSP, they gained the keys to the entire kingdom of clients. Finally, there is Typhoon, the group that keeps cyber defense analysts up at night. Their mission isn't just theft, it's positioning. They focus on critical infrastructure, communications, power grids, water systems. They infiltrate these networks not to immediately attack, but to lie dormant, using living off-the-land techniques to blend in. The goal is simple: have the ability to disrupt essential services in the event of a geopolitical crisis. This is digital deterrence. Plain and simple. These groups don't smash the front door. They find the smallest crack, the tiniest vulnerability, and they exploit it relentlessly until they are deep inside the network, silent and undetected. So, how do they get in? The complexity of the attack is often hidden behind a shockingly simple starting point: human error. The vast majority of these sophisticated operations begin with something mundane, something we've covered before in our cybercrime documentary series. Phishing. A targeted employee, perhaps a lead engineer at an aerospace firm, receives an email. It's an urgent request, seemingly from a colleague or a senior executive, asking them to review a new project, proposal, or mandatory security update. That link, or that attachment, is the digital lockpick. When the employee clicks, they trigger the download of malware, often a remote access Trojan, or rat. This rat silently opens a persistent backdoor to the network, but sometimes The entry point is even more direct. Vulnerability, exploitation. APTs are obsessively scanning the internet for unpatched flaws, the bugs in software that companies haven't fixed yet. If a company hasn't applied a critical patch to its VPN or email server, the APT will use a well-known exploit to bypass security entirely. This is how the WannaCry worm, which crippled the UK's NHS and FedEx, spread so quickly. These APTs operate with the same speed, but with a more strategic target. Once they are inside, the game changes. The goal is to move, but not be seen. This is where their tradecraft truly shines. They use a technique called living off the land, or LOT-L. Imagine a burglar who brings no tools. Instead, they pick up a screwdriver left by a maintenance worker and use it to unscrew the safe. That's LOT-L. Instead of deploying their own unique, detectable malware, the APT uses the legitimate software already installed on the network, PowerShell, WMI, or even standard user credentials. They steal valid credentials through tools like Mimikatz and then log in like a real employee. To the system, they don't look like a threat. They look like IT admin Bob working late. This makes detection incredibly difficult, often taking months or even years to uncover. The final stage is the payoff. Getting the data out. The APTs don't just copy the blueprints, they select a massive trove of documents, compress and encrypt them often into password-protected RAR archives and place them in an innocuous location on the network, a process called staging. Then, they establish a covert channel, an invisible pipeline out of the network. They tunnel the staged data out, often disguised as mundane, authorized web traffic on standard port 443, the HTTPS port. Sometimes, they even commandeer compromised IoT devices or home routers belonging to employees to use as jump-off points, making it look like the data is simply leaving for a personal device, not an adversary server thousands of miles away. The consequence of these digital burglaries is often not a dramatic system failure, but a slow, agonizing erosion of competitive advantage. Let's contextualize the sheer scale of the damage. The FBI estimates that the economic espionage conducted by China has resulted in the theft of U.S. intellectual property valued in the hundreds of billions of dollars annually. That's not a rounding error. That is the fundamental cost of research and development, transferred instantly and without payment. We saw a clear example in the case of Yan Junshu, a Chinese Ministry of State security officer who was eventually convicted in the U.S. for economic espionage. He wasn't after government secrets, he was after the trade secrets of U.S. aviation companies. He was trying to steal critical proprietary technology related to aircraft engine fan blade design. The goal was to give state-owned Chinese aerospace firms a massive, unearned head start in a highly technical and lucrative global market. What does this theft mean in the real world? For the defense sector, it means designs for advanced weapons systems, developed at taxpayer expense, can be used to accelerate the development of opposing military technology. The theft of data related to the F-35 Joint Strike Fighter is a historically cited example of this brazen theft. For the tech sector, it means the company that invested 10 years and $1 billion to develop a revolutionary new microchip architecture suddenly faces a competitor selling an identical product. But with none of the R&D costs factored in, their product is cheaper and their market evaporates. For every employee, it means jobs. When a company loses its core competitive edge, it loses market share. It contracts. And the people who built that innovation are the ones who pay the price. This is why this isn't just a technical issue. It's an economic war fought in the quiet digital hallways of every major American corporation. The silent war demands a sophisticated defense. You can't just slap a firewall on your network and hope for the best. You have to think like an APT. You have to assume they are already inside. Here is the strategic defense blueprint you need to stop being a soft target. First, stop the initial infection. The user is the firewall. The most critical step is MFA everywhere. Implement multi-factor authentication on every single account, especially for remote access and email. Even if an employee clicks a phishing link and gives up their password, The hacker is stopped cold without the secondary code. And prioritize regular patching. The vulnerability in your VPN is a wide-open door. Apply security patches immediately, especially for internet-facing applications and network infrastructure. Second, spot the hidden killer looking for LOTL. Don't just scan for bad files coming in. Monitor for unusual behavior internally. Is IT admin Bob logging in from China at 3 a.m.? Is he running PowerShell scripts he never runs? This is known as Endpoint Detection and Response, or EDR. And it's how you catch LOTL activity. Also, use network segmentation. Divide your network into zones. Your R&D lab for the F-35 should not be easily accessible from the marketing department's network. If an APT breaches one segment, they cannot immediately move laterally to the high-value target. Third, minimize the damage, protecting the crown jewels. Practice data minimization. Keep your most valuable intellectual property off the network entirely, if possible, or isolate it on hardened servers. Know exactly where your crown jewels are stored and implement zero-trust architecture. Abandon the old idea that everything inside your network is safe. Zero trust means you verify every user, every device, and every connection attempt every single time, regardless of whether they are inside or outside the traditional firewall. This is a sophisticated, state-level operation. It will not stop, but by understanding the tactics, by knowing the difference between APT 41's double game and Volt Typhoon's quiet positioning, we can build the necessary digital defenses. We can turn the dark corners of the network back into brightly lit security zones. We must remain vigilant. We must remain anonymous. Stay safe. Stay anonymous. This is the Digital Sleuth.